After a short break, I'm more than happy to welcome each and every one of you to the new episode of our interview series with today's guest, the frontwoman of Canadian power metal band Unleash the Archers, Brittney Slayes, who will be speaking about the band's latest album, Abyss, the process behind it, and give some tips to the fellow singers about how to keep the voice in a good shape. As always, don't forget to subscribe to both here and on Instagram to stay tuned with the updates. Here you go. Hey Brittney, how's it going?
Good, how are you?
All is good, all is good. Thanks for finding time and jumping on the call with me.
No problem.
Yeah, are you in Canada?
Yes.
Oh, nice. How's the situation there? Do you see a light at the end of the tunnel, or you think, the second wave is coming?
Yeah, I don't know. I'm not too sure. It's kind of difficult. There's sometimes it's like it's not even a thing, and then you hear about outbreaks in certain places, and it's weird.
Yeah, exactly the same thing here. I mean, we almost, we're ready to go. The government has lifted all the sanctions and allowed pretty much everyone to do whatever they want. And now we hear that there's a second wave, and pretty much we're all doomed.
Yeah.
Hopefully not. Alright. So big news about Unleash the Archers these days is the release of the latest studio album, Abyss. Congrats on this one. I mean, you've, from what I can see and from myself as well, you've received a pretty good, reviews on this one, and the fans seem to react really graciously on this one. Could you talk a bit about the process behind it, behind the creating the album? How did it all come together?
Yeah, so it's a concept record, so it's all based around a story, and it's the sequel to Apex, which was our 2017 release.
Yep.
And so for both records, what I did was I wrote the story out as a track-by-track guideline. So track 1, chapter 1, this is what's happening in the story. This is how I want the listener to feel. This is how I want the song to sound, basically. And then the boys used that to write the riffs. Apex was written by both Grant and Andrew, but Abyss was written by Andrew only. So he just took my guideline and he wrote a whole bunch of riffs, and then he'd send them back and say, I'm thinking this riff for this song, or he'd write the first portion of the song and send it over and say, what do you think about this? And then together, all four of us would work on it and arrange it and make sure that everything fits right, and that the songs all flow properly, and that it, everything fits exactly where it's supposed to be, and that there's nothing unnecessary, and that every riff has a purpose and moves the story forward in the right direction. And then at the end, I just wrote all the lyrics over top of everything, and we hit the studio.
Nice, that's pretty cool. So were you able to actually work on this together in one studio, or did you have to do it one by one because of the restrictions?
Mostly, well, the pandemic wasn't an issue when we were writing it. That was back last year.
Yes.
So, but Andrew doesn't live with us. We all live in Vancouver except for Andrew. He lives about 4 hours away. So it was all over the internet, and he would just basically send us a little demo of the riff, and then we'd say yes or no, and then we'd build it from there, and then he'd send us a demo of the whole song, and then we would write our parts around that.
Okay, yeah, makes sense. So as I understand, the story behind Abyss kind of evolved, at least in your head, and as an outline, as around the same time as Apex did, right? The previous album.
Yes.
Right. So how did this story actually? I mean, it's been 2 years now, right? 3 almost. 3? No, not almost. 3 years, right? So how did it evolve? I mean, did it actually deviate from the original storyline, or was it exactly the same way you've written it back then?
It did a little, yeah. Things changed for sure. I mean, when we wrote it, we decided that we were just going to focus on it, one album at a time. And at that point, Apex was pretty much fleshed out, but Abyss was still just kind of ideas. And I think, this is going to happen. This is, this is where they're going to go, that kind of a thing. But it wasn't like super solid like Apex was. So things definitely changed after Apex came out. I got some more ideas, and then as we were writing Abyss, I got more and more ideas, and things kind of changed as we went along. But the main structure was there. I always knew that it would be set out in space. I always knew that the Immortal and the Matriarch would, come together in a big galactic space battle. And yeah, it just kind of changed over time a little bit. The grandson character who I introduced in Abyss was new after Apex was finished. I was kind of like, I wanted to introduce something, a little bit of a twist. So there were a few changes, yeah.
Okay, that's pretty interesting. It does sound like it looks a lot, like a book writing process. You almost described it how Tolkien, when he wrote Lord of the Rings, he said, hey, out of the glue, there is a Faramir character. I have no idea who he is, and he just appeared. So where do you dig that, that inspiration from? I mean, how does all of this evolve in your head?
I mean, it all really started with the main characters who were inspired by, some of my favorite fantasy movies and novels and video games and that kind of thing. So once I had my protagonist, who we call the Immortal, and our antagonist, who we call the Matriarch, once we had those two characters, it really just kind of came out of them and how they would interact and what would, what their actions would be in certain instances or situations. So that was kind of, I just basically was like, okay, so the Immortal is really powerful, but he has to, for some reason, not destroy the Matriarch, the second he meets her. So why is that? Oh, okay, well, he's cursed. He's cursed to serve whoever awakens him. And then, okay, so why is the Matriarch using him and not like just a regular person? It's like, okay, well, maybe her sons are kind of special. And, it just kind of came from there. And it really was it was all about the two main characters, and definitely very much influenced by comic books and movies and video games and that kind of thing.
Yeah, it does sound like a Marvel kind of story, almost. Marvel Live. Yeah. And actually, I usually do this shout out on the internet among the subscribers who would then submit the questions, for the band. And one of the readers actually pointed out that you've got Dungeons and Dragon 5th edition player's handbook. He was that precise.
Yeah.
Right behind you in one of the videos, right? And the question was, I mean, how much of the inspiration do you take from Dungeons and Dragons, and do you have time to play, basically?
Well, it's I don't really have time to play. That's actually a new addition to my library, the Player's Handbook. So I'm trying to find the time, but it's just not really there. So I honestly haven't done even a single campaign yet, but I'm super interested in it, and I've always wanted to do it. And it's always been something that I totally should have been doing my whole life, and I just never, had the chance. And so it's honestly not very much inspiration coming from that, but a lot of the movies and things that I love are inspired by D&D. So it's kind of like passing it down the line a little bit. I'm not directly inspired by, the D&D characters or rule books or anything like that, but a lot of the things that I love, like Lord of the Rings, definitely are. So, kind of, it's a little bit of it in there, whether I know it or not, I'm sure. So,
yeah, it's pretty cool. I mean, it does sound a lot like me. I've never played D&D. My wife has gotten me finally one of the first, the sets and everything. Never opened it yet, but it is on my bucket list to do. I am a Tolkien nerd.
No, I definitely understand. that. Yeah.
Alright, coming back to the album, obviously, in terms of the sound, right? It does sound to me like there's a bit more of experiment going on, right? Sound-wise, on the Abyss compared to the predecessors, and it both in terms of the usage of synths. I mean, definitely. I mean, this is at least what I heard, and your vocals as well, right? Which opened for me, by the way, from a completely unknown side on this album. So I think you did a terrific job on this one. So in terms of these experiments, were they actually done on purpose? I mean, did you try to, play around with the sound, or you think the band has just kind of grown into the sound organically?
Yeah, on this record, we really just kind of said no rules.
It worked.
If we want to, yeah. Well, thank you. We all really love synthwave right now. Like we're into it pretty big. So we all were like, obviously, we're writing a synthwave song, like inspired by synthwave, I guess you could say. And of course, we're going to put synth all through the record because it's it's something that we've never done before, and we really wanted Abyss to be different from Apex and from everything else that we've done before. We we just kind of were like, well, that's kind of like a black metal riff. Like we've never done that before. Like, who cares? Let's throw it in there. And we really, if Andrew came to us with a riff and we liked it, we didn't say no. We just figured out where it would fit so that it sounded right. And everything was very calculated. Nothing was like written just because for the sake of it, or we didn't have a song that was just like kind of hanging out and we decided not to use it, or we wrote like 50 songs and then just picked 10. That was totally not how it was. Everything was very calculated, and we dissected every single song and every riff to make sure that everything was exactly in the place that it should be, so that we could have all these different influences and sounds on the record, and it wouldn't come out of nowhere because it fit with the track before and the track that came after, and it was all very, kind of just really placed exactly where it would work, so that it didn't kind of come out of nowhere for anything. So we worked really hard on this record to make sure that it flowed as well as possible, but we also didn't want to put any boundaries on it. So we just kind of did whatever we felt like at the time. Which was a lot of fun. And we've played around with genres on other records, but I think this is really the first time that we kind of made sure that it was all one piece. So even though we had a little bit of gent in there, black metal, folk metal, symphonic, whatever, we all made sure that it was in exactly the right place, as opposed to, like, for instance, on Apex, so it's just like, okay, well, this is our melodic death metal song, and it's just kind of placed there in the middle of the record. This was very much written with each song, all songs in mind at all times.
That's great. And I think this is why exactly, despite having all these different genres, the album is very coherent. And I'd have to say there is not one song that characterizes the album, but at the same time, they all kind of work in synergy to create this larger image for a listener, I have to say. And on this album, you worked again with Jacob Hansen, right? How was it working with him on this one? I mean, did your vision, what I'm interested in, did your vision of the record align with his ideas about how it should sound like?
Well, I mean, one of the reasons why we love working with Jacob so much is that he's just super easy, and we would, we pretty much had it ready to go when we went there. And if there was, a few parts maybe that we were kind of like, I don't know, what do you think about this? He was just like, whatever you want, whatever you like. What does that work for you? If you like it, let's go with it. And there was never a point where he was like, no, I don't like this. Like, we got to figure something else out. He just was like super on board with everything right from the start. And, I feel like if he had felt like we were kind of missing something somewhere, he would have said it. So, the only parts where we really were, looking for his input was on the master, like mix and master. And there were some points where we were kind of like, oh, I don't know, like maybe we should bring that out a little bit more. And he'd be like, I don't think you want to do that, And so, yeah, like I think the most of where Jacob came into play on this record was definitely in the mix, in deciding what goes where. And I remember describing it to him like a sandwich. So I was like, so you want the whole thing to like really fit, right? You want everything. You don't want a bite that's all like avocado or whatever, That's the worst. That's the worst on a sandwich. Right? You want to have it all perfectly layered so you get a little bit of everything, no matter where and how you listen to it. So he totally got that analogy. He was just like, absolutely, and he made sure that every ingredient was exactly where it should be.
Oh, that's fun times. And speaking about ingredients, the next question would be like, choosing a favorite kit. Impossible one, right? But do you have personally a favorite song on the record?
Yeah, that is a hard one.
Yeah.
I think probably like Legacy or The Wind That Shapes the Land, maybe. Through
Why?
Stars is good too. Or I don't know, Faster Than Light. I don't know. It is hard because that they all have a little bit of my favorite music in them. So there's like, I'm such a big fan of synthwave, so Through Stars is so much fun. And then like Faster Than Light is like a straight up power metal song, and I love power metal. So yeah, I don't know, it's hard. I'm also like in love with black metal right now. So Legacy is like kind of my favorite. It's really hard to say.
Nice.
You always know it's a good sign when you can't decide.
I'll just pick one and write out that Brittney said this one.
Yeah.
Sure. And about the album artwork, who was actually the artist? I'm sorry, I didn't look it up beforehand. And whose idea was, behind how it should look like? Was it you? I mean, did you draw a sketch or something?
Sort of. It was Adam Burke,
Mm-hmm.
and I think his Instagram is under Nightjar Illustration, but I'm not too sure. And I was kind of like, there's so many cool moments of this, and I wasn't sure really what to do. I was thinking like maybe kind of like a movie poster, and then it was Scott that was like, no, you should do like a scene right out of the story. And so I was like, okay, like what's the coolest scene? And obviously it's where the matriarch and the immortal meet again for the first time after not having seen each other for a few decades. And the immortal is like super excited to exact his revenge, and the matriarch is basically just really angry, so she's like super excited to beat the crap out of him. So it's like super tense moment where they're seeing each other on the battlefield for the first time. And I just described it as best as I could, the way that I saw it in my head, to Adam, and then gave some other images and pictures and things like that as inspiration, and basically just kind of said, let's do like an old school science fiction novel cover here, like a Frank Herbert or a Dan Simmons or that kind of thing. And not really your typical album cover. Definitely looks more like a novel, but I think it's because it's such a story driven album that I felt like the artwork should be story driven as well.
That's pretty cool. Yeah, I think it kind of again works together with the music, and it does show at least the feel of the album when you go to the record store, if anyone is a nerd like me and still does that. I'm conscious of your time, so just a couple of more questions if you don't mind. But again, one of the other questions that a lot of people have voted and kind of wanted to know about is about your kind of routine on keeping your voice in shape, right? And how do you handle a recording session? Because I know those can be pretty intense sometimes.
Yeah, I mean, I don't really stay in shape all the time. It's kind of a little intense what I do. So I would have to belt every single day to be able to belt every single day. And I just kind of get ready beforehand. So if we have a show or a tour or recording, that kind of thing, what I'll usually do is about 6 weeks in advance, I'll start kind of warming up my voice. So I'll just sing without any sort of force to it at all or anything, no belting, no wails, none of that stuff. But I'll slowly start to push it more and more as we get closer and closer to, performance time. And then I'll really warm up a lot. So especially before the studio, at least an hour of warming up. And then it's always room temperature or slightly warm water, and never cold water, never ice cream or anything, dairy, none of that, and no sugary stuff either. So that way the vocal cords are really clean and smooth and kind of ready to go. And then if I'm feeling tired, I'll inhale steam from a kettle, and then that will moisten the vocal folds again. And if it's really starting to get kind of phlegmy in there, I'll put a little bit of peppermint, like a peppermint essential oil, in the bottom of a bowl, and then inhale that as well. And that really cleans you right out. If you're having, like, you're halfway through the day maybe and you're feeling a little tired or whatever, that'll definitely kind of wake you up and clean you out, and then you're ready to go. So most of the time I would do like a 6-hour day, and I'd get 2 songs done, and then just kind of do all the harmonies and that kind of thing at the very end.
Nice. Well, thanks for sharing this. Also in between, and I completely forgot about this, but right in between Apex and Abyss, by just looking at the poster behind you, you did a short 2-song EP on Canadian, covering Canadian artists. Any plans on releasing a full-length album of such?
Not
Bryan
really.
Adams covers?
It was just kind of like a it was just something to tide everyone over. We knew that the album was going to take a while. We had just started writing it in the summer of 2019 there. So we had this extra bonus track that we had recorded during Apex, which was Northwest Passage. And we really loved it, so we wanted to release it on its own. So we recorded Heartless World as the B-side, and then just kind of put it out as a little 2-song, 7-inch record, just kind of something to put out there while nothing else was going on. We took 2019 off entirely from everything in order to write, so that we could completely separate ourselves from everything else that we had done before and really give ourselves the time to focus on it. So we weren't doing anything else, no tours or shows. So the Ferret Explorers was just kind of a little something to keep the attention of our fans and give them something to listen to while they wait for the new album.
Right, sounds good. And in terms of this album and in promotion, taking time off and stuff like that, do you guys plan on still hopefully going on tour in support of this album in early 2021?
Yeah, hopefully. I mean, we've got lots of dates booked, and things are kind of like sitting there waiting, ready to go.
Yeah.
But it's just a matter of whether or not it can actually happen. So I mean, we've got our fingers crossed that things get better.
Praying for that. Yeah.
But it's really just going to depend on coronavirus. So we've got dates booked in Europe and North America and Australia, and working on South America and Japan. So I mean, if we're all really good about it, next year could be really busy, or we could be sitting on our butts again. So who knows?
Yep. But 7 billion people exactly in the same position. So, I mean, we just all get to work on this, I think.
Yeah.
All right. But if that doesn't work out, do you guys plan to promote it with some drive-in shows or something like that, at least in Canada?
I'm not too sure. Maybe something. I mean, there's these shows where you play in the center courtyard of a hotel, and everyone's on the balconies of the hotel. We might do that. There's a couple hotels in the West Coast that could actually allow us to do that, and then probably some more live streams. But for the most part, I think we'll probably just hang out on Twitch.
Yeah, hopefully none of that crap, and you'll just hit the road. And I'm excited. I hope to catch you sometime in Europe, hopefully next year. Alright, 2 more. You gotta tell me one crazy or a story from your touring life. Just thinking back all those sweet memories about going on tour, or just one story that you cherish. One show that stuck out, and anything like that.
I mean, we played 70,000 Tons last year in 2019, and that was like a really good time. Like, just like too good. We were definitely hurting after that one. It was so much fun, and it was really cool getting to just like hang out with everybody and party on the boat, and like see all these cool bands. And you're just I just felt like another attendee, really, because we'd look at the schedule and be like, oh shoot, Flesh God's on the stage at the other end of the ship, like, let's go. And like we'd run over there, and we were constantly running back and forth, and then like oh, let's go to the pool or whatever. Let's go to the hot tub or let's go to the casino or just whatever. And it was a lot of fun. It was a really, really great way to play a festival because you're just on this boat, and if you're bored or whatever, or you need a break, you can just go to your room, you know, if you need to get away or whatever. Like, it was just so much fun, and it was probably like the best time ever. And I think everyone that was on the boat is like, oh yeah, no, I don't go to any other festival anymore because it's like you're super spoiled. So it was a lot of fun. It's probably the best. Yeah.
Nice. I gotta hit that one next time.
Yeah. Really good time.
Perfect. Thanks a lot, Brittney. Any last message for the fans? Anything you want to share with them?
Just thanks for listening. And we did a live stream last weekend, but we might do like a rerun of it or something. So maybe just like follow us on Facebook or Instagram or whatever, and wait for announcements on that and get a chance to see us sort of half live, semi live. And then otherwise, yeah, we'll be hanging out on Twitch.
Perfect. Thank you very much for your time, Brittney, and have a great day. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Thanks.
Bye.
See you.